Hi, Jim Moyna here with Moyna Bass Fishes. Today we're going to talk about the 2022 Champions Tour Championship on Serpent Lake here in Crosby, Minnesota. Because that tournament concluded yesterday. I finished 7th place, which was in the money, but certainly wasn't where I wanted to be in the money. Obviously you want to be first place, but didn't get it. And the rest of this video is going to explain why I didn't get it. And maybe explain why I did at least get 7th place. So anyhow, as it turns out, just lay a little background here. We had 3 days to practice for the event. And the first day, I spent the entire day just fishing all the shallow cover around the lake. So that meant docks, lily pads, shallow milfoil with some milfoil mats, and so on. The next 2 days, I spent offshore, fishing offshore structures. And there's smallmouths and largemouths in this lake, okay? The first day, I didn't catch any smallmouth, so I knew they weren't shallow. I might have had one on a dock that I shook off, a small one. So obviously they weren't shallow, which means they were out in the deeper structure. And it didn't take long once I started fishing the deeper structure to realize, yes, that's where they were, and it wasn't hard to find them. It wasn't hard to find them at all. And there were largemouths out in some of this deeper structure too. And there's lots of fish in some of these places. However, the trick was getting them to bite. And it wasn't easy to get these fish to bite. You could see them chasing your lures, coming over and looking at them, swimming up to look at them. And I threw a lot of different baits at them. I threw Nico Rigs, various drop shot, various plastics on drop shots, including the flatworm, vibrating blade baits, little swim baits of various sizes, jerk baits. It didn't matter. I could not get these fish to bite hardly at all. The smallmouths. Seems like when I'd finally hook up on something on a smallmouth spot, in would come a largemouth. The one largemouth out there mixing it up with the others. So, but I did notice the one thing that did occur was on that second day of practice, when I was doing all that I was doing was fishing, underwater structure. Was, it'd been a tough bite all day, and then like the last 30 minutes, right around sundown, the smallies did start to bite. I mean, you could pull up and they actually, instead of just swimming up to your bait to look at it, they'd close the deal, swim up and close that deal. And then you'd throw out a bait and drag it, and the fish would bite it. So that was kind of interesting. That last half hour was, these fish were much more willing biters that second day of practice, which told me, so I kind of felt like, well, the first little bit in the morning of the tournament's probably going to be when I'm going to want to target smallmouth. And then the third day of practice, I just continued with more offshore structure fishing and so on to finally conclude the day. I continued with my lack of success on catching offshore smallmouth. Although I was catching, I was catching some largemouths offshore, but the smallmouths were just extremely difficult to get to bite. So the strategy, so we have our tournament meeting, and where you supposedly get a lake split. This time they didn't split the lake. Serpent Lake's a small lake, 1,100 acres. So they just said, you guys can fish the whole lake all day, instead of splitting it into groups, where Group A fishes, the east, Group B fishes the west, or whatever they do. They didn't do any of that. Just let us have the whole lake for the whole day. Although we still had 2 sessions. We had a morning session, and then we had a lunch break, where everybody comes in for lunch, which is really pretty awesome. And then you have an afternoon session. So anyhow, so my strategy was I was going to pick my best offshore spot that I knew of to fish right away in the morning and try to pick up a couple, early morning and aggressive smallmouth, and then maybe hit one, probably hit one spot, probably two of those types of spots, hit one, and then go to another one, and hopefully I could just capitalize on some of that more aggressive nature during the lower, uh, you know, daylight hours before the sun got up too high and these smallies really shut down. So that's what I did. And it's a small lake. So whatever my second spot was going to be was definitely going to be a secondary type place because all the prime stuff was going to have boats on it, with no question. So, anyways, it comes tournament morning. I'm boat two, so I get to have run of the pick basically. I get the spot I wanted. There were two spots that I was really drooling over. Had to make a choice, so I did. Turns out second place based a lot of his weight off the other spot, but as it turns out, I probably wouldn't have caught as many fish off of that spot as he did, and I'll get into that in a minute. So I go to my spot, and it's like I said, it's a small lake. Another one of my competitors, who's a later boat draw, he comes over to fish the spot, and we can't start fishing until 7, so we're waiting there for about, I don't know, it's probably about a 7 or 8 minute wait. Just wait, I'm dialing in, on my Lowrance active target exactly where my first cast is going, and then I'm monitoring the fish activity with the active target these few minutes, and joke a little bit with Kyle, the other guy, and then of course, it hits 7 a.m. and it's time to fish, and I started with a blade bait, thinking I'll get the most active fish with this thing first, and I made like 2 casts with it, and didn't hook up with anything, but did see some saw fish coming for it and so on. None of them committed. Meanwhile, after my 2 casts, Kyle's hooked up on a fish. So I'm like, oh, dang it, So I just throw that down and I grab a all-terrain football jig, throw that out there, and I hook up almost immediately. So Kyle gets his fish in, I get mine in. We each have one, and that's all I got off of that spot, despite numerous fish being on the active target, numerous fish going for everything I was throwing at them. I mean, I was just throwing all kinds of different baits, different swim baits. But what these fish wanted, which I did not have in the boat, they were in my camper in the parking lot of the boat launch, and Kyle had, it was what Kyle was throwing. And what was he throwing? He was throwing an Alabama rig, which in Minnesota you're only allowed, I think you're allowed just one hook. But that's what he's throwing, and he caught like 3 or 4 from this spot, and all I could catch was the one. And we weren't exactly throwing. It was a big enough spot. He was kind of throwing to a separate little group of fish from what I was throwing to on this spot. So we're each kind of minding our own business. But after he caught like his third one, and he didn't get them all right away. He was working for him, but he was getting some bites on it, and I wasn't getting anything. So finally, I'm like, okay, I just got to go hit another fresh spot and try to pick off a super active one. So I pulled out of there, knowing I was leaving fish. I mean, and they're quality fish. The average smallmouth size is much better than the average largemouth size in this lake. So I know I was leaving like quality fish. But if you can't get them to bite, you got to do something. Either you figure out how to get them to bite, or you go to easier fish. So I'm thinking I'm going to go to easier fish. So I go to my second spot. Nobody's there. Actually, my second spot was where Hunter was fishing, who ended up in second place. That was my other prime spot that I was kind of, I wasn't sure which one to go to. And really, that was where I started, was a damn good spot. Hunter spot was really good too. And the way that, you know, of course when I'm doing this video, these people got to be driving by on their noisy ATVs. But hey, that's just part of the freaking outdoor life, right? What's the outdoor life like without chainsaws, outboard motors, ATVs, and shotgun blasts, right? Okay, back to the video. So over on Hunter spot, which, why should I call it Hunter spot? It was my spot too. So over on spot B, there was him and another guy, but Hunter caught his on the A-rig too over there. That was his deal, and he caught a bunch of smallmouth off of that spot, and that was the backbone of his second place showing, was that spot. So anyways, let's go back to where I was going. So I want, you know, that would have been nice to go there, but I had to find a different secondary area, and I did. There wasn't as many fish there, but there were fish there, and I had to, and same thing, I had to throw the kitchen sink at them. And all I got to show for it was a 1.5 pound largemouth. And there was just fish down there the whole time, just throwing at them. They're checking out my baits and this and that. And they're herding bait school, you know, actual minnow schools that are coming through. And it's just, I can't catch them. I got no A-rig to do it. They're in my truck in the parking lot. But I'm like, anyways, so now, I'm just like, whatever, and I'm spending too much time. I spent too much time on my first spot. Now I spent too much time on my second spot. So now I go to a third spot, spend too much time there, and finally I'm like, well, I'm just going to run these docks, run some docks, don't catch any, but I did catch one on a whopper plopper. So now I got 3 fish. And then I go to another area and work that area, and all of a sudden the 4-hour session's over with, and I got 4 fish to show for it. I caught a 4th fish on my last area, and that was on a Nico Rig. So I've got a all-terrain football head fish. I didn't mention this, the second fish came on a drop shot rig. 3rd fish on the whopper plopper in between docks, and then the last fish was on a Nico Rig. And I've got, like, for my 4 fish, I got like 7 something pounds. I'm in 23rd place out of 25 after the first 4-hour morning session. Completely deflated. I mean, I was drooling over this boat they were going to give away, and now I'm like, I got like a 1% chance of pulling this out at this point. But you never know with this all you can catch and all you can weigh, you know, all you can catch, all you can weigh kind of, and what's the outdoors without mosquitoes, right? So, oh no, I thought I winged him, but he's still flying. So now I'm like, I know the smallmouth bite is dead. And I know a lot of the prime structure guys have been keying on all day. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to just pull up on some of the structure and just start ripping 6, 7 fish at a time, which is what, in my mind, is what I'm thinking I have to do. And I'm like, you know, a lot of the shallow cover, I've seen a few guys messing with it, but not a whole lot. And I'm thinking, you know, if I can get hot with the shallow cover, I can climb back. I can just move upward. And that's all I'm thinking. I'm like, just don't end up at 23rd, 24th, 25th. Just move up, just do better than you did in the morning session. I'm like, you know what? I know I can do better by fishing shallow. I know I can. Just based on what practice showed me. So that's what I did. I went shallow in the afternoon session. In the afternoon session, instead of catching only 4 fish, I caught 13 fish. And those 13 fish combined with the 4 fish in the morning landed me in 7th place. I had 17 fish total for, I think I was right in the 30 pound range. The winner had 42 pounds. So it was really 12 pounds isn't really that far. Plus, considering I probably lost about 4.5 pounds of fish during the day. So it wasn't too far off really. But so what happened in the afternoon? like I said, I went shallow. So I fished docks, and then I fished just shallow lily pads and little matted, foil areas, and just with flipping a punch rig, and that was on the milfoil, and then the docks was just skipping a wacky rig worm. So, and I lost. What did I lose? I did lose one fish in the morning session on a blade bait off of my second spot, and I did lose 2 in the afternoon flipping lily pads. But you know, I could have finished. Well, one of those fish would have been in 6th, and then 2 of those 5th. But it's hard to get them all, especially when you're dealing with high numbers of bites. All right, so this is the part of the video where I'm going to take these rods out and just show you, just drop a comment or 2 on each rod that was tied up for this lake. The lake being Serpent Lake. First of all, it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle getting these in. Okay, this is the jerkbait, which I left it tied on from the St. Lawrence River, and didn't really use it too much. I used it some in practice. Okay, I used it some in practice, and just caught a bunch of non-scoreable size fish. And the smallie, the smallies that were out on the smallie cover were minimum of 20 feet. And this bait, I just felt like I wasn't going to get to him with that bait. You never know, but at 20 feet, and then so a lot of them are at 25, and even a little deeper. That bait going maybe 5 feet at the most. I'm like, I felt like I had to go with something else. All right, here's one of the drop shots of many I tried. So this is the Yamamoto, I throw these things all the time, shad-shaped worm, okay? Not only did I try that and fail, I tried various robo worms. I tried the Berkeley flatworm. I tried the Billy Rub hot shot, and all that stuff was just not. I just couldn't produce, whether it was on the smallmouth spots or when I went to my largemouth areas. Just frustrating, I tell you what. Very frustrating. All right, here's the blade bait I was throwing. There's a blade bait I was throwing. I chose a gold one because I caught one on it in practice, and I don't know. I tried other colors in practice. That gold seemed to be more appealing to the fish, and that's the one I lost. That's what I lost a largemouth on in the morning session off a smallmouth spot. It had him, play. That's the downfall of these blade baits. This one's like an ounce. This is an ounce, okay? And you're at risk of losing fish on the jump with this 1 ounce blade bait. I did change the hook to a hook I like better on the back, but it still didn't matter. Just the heavy weight of that blade bait, when a fish comes up and shakes their head, out of the water, they get a lot of freaking velocity and a lot of force with all that shaking, and they can throw that. And that's exactly what happened. That little largemouth threw it. So, all right, here is one of the heroes from the afternoon session. It's a wacky rig worm. Okay, that was my dock worm. It was the hero, or one of the heroes. Okay, and that was, you just stay off it's a clear lake, so just keep backed off, and you just gotta skip that thing under there, and fish it really slow under that dock, and hopefully, hopefully the fish picks it up. I did have probably I think my biggest bass, and maybe at least another, one of my best ones came off the docks that afternoon. And I did see one. There was a dock where I caught, I think it was like a 212, I think. And I saw another fish swim out from under the dock and out away and disappear while I was fighting this one. And that other one was like 3.5 pounds. I fished that dock later, never got a bite. So, what else? Swim bait. Okay. There's a swim bait I tried, and they sure like looking at it and not biting it. This was a skinnier one. I went with the skinnier one. Then a lot of times I throw a Kitech, the Fat A or whatever, the fat one. But yeah, I'm like, I'll try something different. Maybe the skinny one will work. Well, no, it didn't work. That's on a all-terrain Smalley Smasher head. This here is, well, I already mentioned this. That's another drop shot rig I had set up with a slightly different hook. So I got two. So I had those two drop shot rigs on spinning rods with, you know, two different types of hooks to accommodate different bait thicknesses and styles. Because so one hook was smaller, one was bigger. So obviously the bigger one, I put meatier type baits on there, and then the smaller one I'd put, you know, with the smaller hook drop shot, I'd put obviously skinnier baits and so forth. This bait, which is often a hero of mine, this is the Nico Rig. You know, you probably, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you've seen this in practically all of them this year. For at least catching a fish or two, and I guess it caught a fish. It weighed one fish in this tournament for me. But you know, with the deep weed lines like they were, it takes a long time for that thing to sink down there to where the fish are. The deep, with the weed lines being like 14, 15, 16, sometimes even slightly more, it just takes forever with that weight in there. That's a 3/32 ounce weight I got in that plastic. It just takes so long with each cast, even though I felt, I'm fairly confident where I'm throwing this, that hey, this is the key juicy part of the structure. It just takes so long, and then if you don't get bit and they ain't there, it's like you just wasted so much time. So it was a time eater in that morning session. It was a time eater. All right, it's hero time. This is the #1 bait from the tournament in the afternoon session, and that is the Texas rigged creature bait. Throwing that up into the matted milfoil and the pads and that. That's, I think I had 4 dock fish in the afternoon session, and then 9 of them came off of that bait, and it was fun. It was really exciting when I got into that bite and when I started closing the gap. I mean, I think it's because I'm like, oh man, it's like, you know, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm out of the 20s. All right, now I'm, you know, in the mid-teens, and then you know, Marshall's saying, well, if you catch another one, you know, you're gonna be up around 12th. I'm like, then I do, and then you catch another one, also, oh man, I'm in the top 10, and then I made it as high as 6th place, and then just ran out of steam in the last 20 minutes of the tournament, and couldn't catch any more in that last 20 minutes. Dang it. So, all right. So, what else did I have? Here's the all-terrain football jig with the twin tail on there, which is out of a color no longer made. This is my last pack. I love that color. It's my last pack of them. And there, that color, the fish will never see that color again. And we'll just continue with baits. This worked in practice. Texas rigging this curly tail worm. Caught quite a few fish on that in practice off the weed line. And I threw it in the tournament. Got ignored. This football head. This was another football jig. I didn't throw it that much in the tournament, but I did throw it some on the edges of the milfoil where I was expecting to catch a largemouth, and nothing. That's just a complete waste of time to bring that out. Top water. I guess I'm bringing 3 rods out. Okay. When you have, when you got all your rods in one rod locker, sometimes they got to come out 3 at a time because the one you want to grab does not come out. So there's a walking bait I had tied on, used it minimally, but it was just, if those smallmouth started, for whatever reason, started coming near the surface, they were going to get a good look at that thing. Which they never really did. They always seem to keep their way down. Here's another drop shot rig I had tied on. This is on a bait caster. That's the Tricky D by Billy Rub Baits. I'm a big believer in that bait. I mean, it's after what I saw in Rayburn this year when I was using it down there, it won me over there. I'll tell you that. This crankbait, I didn't even throw this crankbait, so not even wasting your time. Oh, okay. Oh, the whopper. Okay. I weighed one on this whopper plopper. Scored 1 fish on this whopper plopper. Heck of a bite, man. Just the largemouth plastered that bugger. Just absolutely smashed it. The one thing I ran into trouble with this whopper plopper was in practice, there was some algae in some areas of this lake. And in practice, I was throwing this around some algae, and the algae got it around the shaft of the propeller. But the propeller rotates on that shaft, and somehow it got in there, and it really bound up that propeller, and it wouldn't spin very good. So it was kind of a frustration. I couldn't really use it for the rest of the day. And my hope was it would it would dry out and free itself, and that's exactly what happened. So, and it had like 3, the lake was off limits for 3 days. So over those 3 days, it dried up, and that algae must have just been brittle. And as you spun that propeller, it just broke it away and it freed up. The biggest fish I caught out of practice and including the tournament was up shallow on a spinnerbait, but not that one. It was basically this one, but a different color, white and chartreuse. The reason why I went to this color is because I thought I could do that and catch some fish. Never caught a fish on it, didn't throw it a ton. What else is important in here? Yeah, you know what? Yeah, screw it. The rest of those rods can stay in there. Don't have much to say about them. So I ended up 7th place on that deal. The winner had 42 pounds. I was down with 30 pounds. It was a close for the top few spots, trying to win that. Frustrating day. I did, and then the other thing that I didn't get done was going into it. I was 2nd in Angler of the Year points going into it, and the Champions Tour does include the championship as part of their Angler of the Year determination, which I like that. Like if you look at what the elites do and what Major League Fishing does, they wrap up their Angler of the Year standings at the end of the regular tournaments. But to me, the year includes the championship. So if you do well at the championship, you should also be rewarded to some degree. And it should be included into Angler of the Year points, which is what the Champions Tour does. So I kind of like that. So anyways, Matt Thompson was ahead of me by like 10 points going into the last tournament. And although I did finish ahead of him here in the championship, but only by a few places. So congratulations to Matt, and congratulations to Noah Schultz for winning the championship. I believe he's won like 2 or 3 of the last championships for this tour. And that's the guy who I predicted would win. If it wasn't me, it was going to be him. And so congratulations. And I got to up my game somehow. Looking back, I don't know how to do it much. I mean, the morning session was just disastrous. It just ate up so much time trying to fish those deep spots that I just fished shallow the whole dang time. Who knows what would have happened, but I don't know. anyhow, so I ended up runner-up in the Angler of the Year points. I don't know if I did say that. I was second going into the end, and then remained there. So that's nice. Nobody will ever remember that, but me, and maybe Matt. Maybe Matt will remember that because he said some nice words to me and on stage regarding me as so. Anyhow, that's it for that recap. And I don't know. My next tournament isn't until the Toyota Series Championship in early November. So the next videos you'll be seeing from me will be something besides tournament recaps and pre-fishing recaps. Over.